President Muhammadu Buhari was at the National Assembly earlier to formally present the 2019 Appropriation Bill to a joint session of the National Assembly. The 2019 budget estimate of 8.83 trillion naira is slightly lower than that of the 2018 budget of 9.1 trillion naira. What is the implication of that? What does this mean for the 2019 fiscal year? We will be going deeper into these issues and more very shortly on Nigeria Today. My name is Dennis ADEGUNLOYE. Welcome. Well, with me in the studio to discuss the 2019 appropriation is Yusha'u Aliyu, an economist. Mr. Aliyu, you're welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much.
All right. And we also have a financial and investment analyst with us in the person of Mr. Ni Akinshiju. Thank you also for joining us on the program.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right. You're both welcome to this edition of Nigeria Today, where we'll be discussing the issues and breakdown of the 2019 appropriation bill as submitted by Mr. President earlier. Let's start with you, Mr. Aliyu. I suppose you watched the live presentation by Mr. President of the 2019 budget proposal. Just give us your initial take on his submissions.
It was a good presentation, even though it's a tradition of appropriation bills in our modern democracy. But what impressed me more is the history of the economy by the president, from where he took the economy and where it is today, and also including the performance of 2018 budget and also the constraint of the 2018 budget. However, some important features appear to be more strategic in this budget. That is the desire to have more injection into the economy by redeeming a lot of debt, by also giving wiping a lot of arrears, and also creating a new minimum wage bill which is attached to this same particular appropriation that has the backing of medium-term expenditure framework as presented by the President of the National Assembly before today.
All right, Mr. Ni, let's get your initial thoughts with regards to Mr. President's presentation.
The simple implication of Mr. President's address today talks to momentum. For the first time since I've been following up on budget presentation by different governments, like he noted, I can see linkages. Even by the title of the budget itself, Budget of Continuity, it tells us a story. It's like a storyboard. Starting in 2016 with the budget of recovery, that talks directly to our experience in the recession period. And we recovered, as it were. And the budget 2017 was titled Recovery and Growth. Talks to we have now recovered, get on the growth road. And 2018 talks to budget of consolidation. And now we are talking of a budget of continuity. So there's a storyline, you know, as presented by these budgets. And it tells you that it's a single uniform line. It's a continuity of from one year to the other. And that's for the Nigerian experience has consequences. And the consequences are simply that for the first time we can see a budget that is talking about starting from one point and moving to another point and moving to another in a growth pattern. And of course, the president related to the Economic and Recovery Growth Plan, the ARGP, and what that tells us is that these budgets and these old budgets are rooted in a mother heart. The mother heart represented by the Economic and Recovery, the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. So it is not just a concept, you know, that is given for a period, but it actually has a principle that guides it. So, and of course, when you also look at the size of the budget itself, it's bigger though we can say it's lesser than the current 2019 budget, but in truth it is bigger than the original draft proposal presented to the National Assembly for the 2018 budget, which was stated at 8.6 trillion. Then it was the National Assembly using its privileged position that increased the threshold to 9.1. Now we are looking at 8.83, and that tells us that there is an increase organically by the president, by the executive arm of government. And of course, we also observe reduction in the deficit sides of the budget. We observe reduction in the planned borrowing size of the budget. And when you put all this together, it means that the executive arm has become conscious, you know, of the headache associated with deficit, and have become even more concerned now with organically increasing revenue, because that became a major issue of discourse in the presentation.
All right. Mr. Yushaul, Mr. Yi brought up some issues there with regards to revenue generation and deficits. Mr. President did allude to debt recovery in his address. Just talk to us a little bit more about that particular side of, you know, generating funds.
You know, in every proposal of appropriation is just an estimation of expected revenue. Yeah. These revenues has a lot of base. One is oil and non-oil. So when oil is mentioned, the benchmark was put at $60, looking at the trend in the international market, and also to try to balance the exigencies that may arise from the market differentials. That is one. Two, the non-oil sector include the performance of agriculture and also the non-agri sector, especially the company, the taxes. Tax base, mostly in advanced economies, are so important than any other product budget system, where you put a budget line using the tax base at your own disposal, which is more real, which has also a link between the GDP and also the employment aspect of the economy. So I think the president made a good stand on that, by giving non-oil an increase. But looking at the context of the appropriation itself, spending up to about 50% on recurrent is the same trend from what we have seen in 2018 and previous budget, right from budget of transition, recovery, economic growth and recovery, including this budget of continuity. But what inspired me more about the non-oil aspect is where the president is trying to restructure debt to pay local to assume a statute on local debt issue, because the domestic debt play a significant role in trying to ginger the slow growth level at which the economy is experiencing. Most of our contractors need to go back to work, need to also settle some of their liabilities with our banks, especially now that we have a lot of challenge with our banking institutions. Sky Bank is one, and presently Diamond Bank and Access integration is also the second. So the budget will have the administration to strategize more on diversification, which the president has been emphasizing. The non-oil contribution is attached to a lot of issues. Look at, for instance, the issue of recovered loot, or that is forming a budget line, which is also part of non-oil. Yes. So if what they are going to put from that direction is taken into critical sectors of the economy, that will translate the target growth rate of 3% of the real GDP as identified by this bill, we are hoping that some commitment must be made also, not by the by the executive alone, but by the legislators, to look critically into the presentation, and also to avoid increasing this time around because the president in his own presentation has highlighted the 109 senatorial component of our democracy, and also the activities of the government within the same entity. And also the president has also highlighted some critical aspect which has to do with oil. That is the stability in the oil producing state, and also the continuation of 60 billion the transfers that has to be made by amnesty.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ni, this is the last budget presentation by this administration before the 2019 general elections, just a couple of months away. Would you say there's any significant regard to this insofar as the budget proposal is concerned?
Of course, there's huge significance because the budget itself is coming with its own character.
Yeah.
First is a transition budget. And because it is a transition budget, it has its own peculiarity. And what exactly are we talking about when you now, when you cast this against the background of, I don't know if we call it a culture, by the National Assembly of delaying budgets. The current 2018 budget was signed into law June 20. Yep. I recall that it was presented to the National Assembly sometimes October 23, 2017. It took a whole 7 months, from presentation to passage. Now, what that tells you is that if that same attitude, is replicated in this circle, it does mean that if this president returns or this government returns into government, it would actually be implementing the 2019 budget in its second term. Yeah. So that holds one implication, and then the other implication is that is it possible for the executive arm of government and the legislative arm of government to reach a rapprochement, in a way that this particular budget would be passed as soon as possible? And of course, the president made that very clear, that if the two arms of government consider national interest, this budget can be passed as early as possible. And that is important. I keep saying that we run an asymmetric fiscal year system, which is wrong. Asymmetry means that you only know the day of presentation, you don't know the day of passage. Yeah. That impacts planning. The basis of economy, finance, investment is predictability. So when we say a fiscal year, we must be able to determine from what date to what date, the beginning of the fiscal year and the end of the fiscal year. So if you run an asymmetric system as we are running now, it means that you only know when this budget would be presented. The National Assembly will insist on 12 month cycle. That is what the Constitution requires. But we are saying, for practical reasons, for practical purpose, the Nigerian economy is driven by the public arm of government. The public arm of government. So it is not driven by the private sector. So you need a situation where there will be an alignment between the public sector and the private sector, because in the true sense of it, the private sector are the implementers of the budgets. They are the implementer, the financial system, the industry, and the contractors. These are the implementers of the budget. The government, through the budget, only provide the policies. So there is a need for that alignment, and that alignment would also mean that the national budget must align with the private sector fiscal year, which usually starts in January or latest March. So you can have a quantum of activities in other sectors starting in a particular period, and it will spread, and of course that will also impact the bottom of the pyramid. So I think generally the character of this particular budget could be challenging if we go the way the National Assembly had been going. I want to also join join my voice to the appeal of the president that the National Assembly should consider greater national interest to hasten, the processing and the passage of this budget, noting that we've had a period in the history of this democratic experience when budget was passed within 3 weeks.
Right. Okay, well, we'll continue our discussions. Let's take our topic to the streets now. You are watching Nigeria Today, and we are taking an in-depth look at the 2019 Appropriation Bill presented to the joint session of the National Assembly by Mr. President. We'll now take a break from the studio to hear from some Nigerians who followed the live presentation of the budget proposal.
Government spend money on capital projects where it will take a lot of people off the street and working, and in that case, which means there will be money in circulations and government will make more money and it will create a lot of job opportunity for the people. If party politics involve and it delay the budget, it will create a lot of problems for the budget, and which is not healthy for the nations. So these are one of the problems. So our appeal to them that issue of party politics should be devolved, why they should look at the interest of the nations, which is more paramount to the party interest.
Okay. The capital project budget is the main thing there, because if that is passed, at least we'll have more hospitals, build more bridges, and trains, and many other things that is needed in the country.
What we are thinking about is our own benefit for the future. You understand? We really appreciate Kumo. We hope so. All these National Assembly members and all this, let them pass the bill in time so that Nigerians will benefit. That's all.
This is Nigeria Today, and we are back in the studio with Yusha'u Aliu and Ni Akinshiju, discussing, of course, the budget presentation by Mr. President earlier. Mr. Aliu, let's talk about, you heard what some of the people on the streets refer to with regards to capital projects being paramount and less politicking. Would you say that the budgets for essentials like infrastructure, education and health are appropriate in this 2019 budget?
Of course, yes. I have to commend the Minister of Budget and Plan, Udo Udoma, for even having taken time to present a precise budget of this aspect. But however, the performance of the budget depends so much on the function not only of the Budget Ministry, but also Ministry of Finance and also the respective ministry, department and agencies. This budget, as rightly pointed out, budget of continuity, there is need to understand what aspect of continuity in it. The President has clearly spelled out there is going to be rollover of some project from 2018 into 2019 so that the project can be given the right attention. And that is why the medium-term expenditure framework always assume a 3 years trend, so as to look at to measure the weaknesses and also the strengths of all investment. So the capital as it is, like I rightly pointed out, from the context of 8.3, you really see a budget where the capital is taking the largest share, probably as a result of our expensive democracy and our large workforce, which was also helping the economy at the same time with taxes. The non-oil sector, like we rightly pointed out, there is an increase. Why? Because there is proper management of what is coming from the company income tax. Those that have not been paying, they are now paying. So if contractors, if critically you are giving contract, we know that there is withholding tax. We know there is value added tax, which is paid to inland revenue. We know that if all the critical infrastructures, especially in health, as identified by Mr. President, because what will only make our purchasing power of individuals to grow is when you grow the human capital development. The DCI index, that is the human development index, must increase, and if it is to increase for our GDP target of 3% to be achieved, there is need to invest so much to the fact that not only, for instance, in primary health cares, including the secondary health cares, because it is scattered 774 local government as identified by Mr. President. In each, if federal government is investing, probably look at the allocation. Before we go to the allocation sectorally, and also the performance of those components within the same budget, matters a lot.
All right, Mr. Nee, it is more certain than not that the National Assembly, when they come to consider Mr. President's presentations and all the rest of it, that they're not likely to concur 100% with what he has proposed. What areas would you say see the National Assembly making alterations to the proposed bill?
If they are constructive or progressive alterations, we will applaud them.
Okay.
But already there's a pedigree that is not too impressive. What they did with the 2018 budget, I call it, that was sheer wicked, fraudulent distortion of the budget in 2018. So much that the president had to creatively, establish what it calls the Presidential Infrastructural Development Fund, so as to first establish critical infrastructure and ensure that budgetary shenanigans don't get to affect this infrastructure. The Abuja, Kaduna, Kano expressway, the Lagos-Ibadan expressway, the Lagos-Kano railway, and all these are critical infrastructures. And the idea is, let's have independent funding. Now, what we have realized is that the National Assembly consciously imputes their constituency projects into the national budgets, and this mostly distorts the thinking, the direction, and the fundamentals of putting together the budget itself. So I want to appeal, that the National Assembly should have a proper understanding of the philosophical direction of this particular budget. It is to enhance our gains. We have moved from a recession. Already we are recording growth. The growth is the 2018 is we are projected to grow at a minimum of 1.9% by World Bank. The federal government itself is projecting 2.01%. We are showing indications of that. Third quarter GDP is recorded at 1.81%. Now, and experts are saying it's likely we do 2.4% in the fourth quarter. So when you add the 1.95 in first quarter, the 1.51 in second quarter, 1.81% in third quarter, and likely 2.4%, we'll be doing a 1.9 and all that. So it is possible to achieve the 3.01% GDP set out by this budget. But what is more impressive for me is the target of, the inflation targeting to 9.98%. Now, once we are able to do that, that means we are under the double digits. Once we are able to achieve that. And of course, the food inflation implication will also have consequences in terms of reduced prices and all that. So if we are able to, if the National Assembly, and I keep saying this, the National Assembly should look at it beyond the projects and whatever capital they want to make out of it in their constituencies. All these things must work together to achieve these targets. We have already, the president has shown capacity. When you have inflation rates move consecutively downward, decline downward from an high of 18.27 in January 2017 to a low of 11.26 before it goes back to 11.28 now.
This philosophy certainly has to be.
Yes, it has. It shows that there's direction. So if we have set if the president has said 9.9% of for inflation in 2019, everybody should come together. All right. Especially those who are shouting they are hungry and all that.
All right. Well, time is no longer on our side. We certainly like would love to get more of your insight on the topic, but time is against us. We need to say thank you right now to our guests, Mr. Ni Akinshiju, who is an investment analyst and financial investment analyst, and Mr. Yushau Aliu, who is an economist. Thank you both for your insights on this topic.
Thank you very much.
Of course, to our viewers, we say thank you for always being there to watch the program, and of course you can watch this episode and any other online at www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Dennis Adegunloye. Until next time, we'll see you again. Good evening.